Hello everyone, today we're going to dive into a world where the boundaries between reality and myth are blurred, and fire becomes not just an element, but a living being. Have you ever wondered what lies behind the magic of the fire dance? The old gypsy woman looked bitterly at the fire. Tents and carts were burning, all the goods that had not been taken out were about to turn to embers. A flock of gypsies huddled around the only cart that was intact. The horses had been saved, and the chickens too. Tears were streaming down the face of the old Shovakan. She was not only sorry for the good things that had perished in the fire, she was grieving for those who had died in the fire. This fire was not accidental, they were going to be destroyed. The fire was so strong that even a downpour could not immediately extinguish the flames. The woman said something to the young man and wrapped herself tightly in her shawl and walked down the rain-swept road. She did not notice the cold drops of rain, walked with a straight back. It was her duty to save her loved ones. The clacking of heels echoed down the deserted street. It was barely past 5 in the morning, the rare cars flying by without noticing anything. The city was asleep, but soon it would wake up and life would boil again. A woman hurried home after a sleepless night. Her hair braided into a braid that was already disheveled. Dark skin, black eyes with thick lashes and clear contour of eyebrows, plump scarlet lips. Such a woman is impossible not to remember. Slender, tall, with a sly gleam in her eyes, Lachi always made an impression. She especially liked to watch people's reactions when she announced that she was a gypsy. The mixture of emotions displayed on her opponent's face ranged from disbelief to squeamishness. Lachi herself only chuckled. The main thing she didn't say. The gypsy was a Shovihani, that is, a witch. She got her gift and knowledge from her grandmother, she was good at fortune-telling and seeing the future, and she fought evil. She had enough friends all over the world. Lachi went somewhere every now and then, led an almost nomadic lifestyle. She didn't need money, she often helped for free. This morning she was returning from a night of fighting another demon that had infiltrated the world. More than anything, she wanted to shower and sleep. In 2 days she was going to another city, to a friend's house for a visit, just a vacation. Her things were not packed, she had just gotten her suitcase out. The cat was sitting on the windowsill, looking out for her mistress, and as soon as he saw her, he ran to the door to meet her. The first thing she did was to take a shower to wash off the tiredness and the odor that soaked her clothes and hair. She threw her clothes in the wash and put the soup from the fridge on to heat. After a long shower under the cat's disgruntled gaze, Lachi went into the kitchen. She fell asleep instantly, the cat laying down next to her. She planned to sleep all day, pack her things. The doorbell rang insistently. Someone very much wanted to see the mistress. At first, Lachi decided not to open the door. They would call and leave, but that wasn't it. The person at the door wasn't going anywhere on principle. Swearing, she pulled on her robe and went out into the hallway. There was no peephole in the door, and the landlady had once again promised to fix it. Opening the door, she froze. "You? What are you doing here?" Lachi couldn't recover from her astonishment. "Can I come in?" "Sure, come on in." 10 minutes later, Lachi was setting the table, glancing at her guest. Lachi had almost no blood relatives left, some of whom had died in faraway places, some of whom had died for various reasons. Her parents died long ago, she was brought up by her grandmother. Then she went to school. Yes, she got a higher education, but the blood was stronger. The connection to the past was finally lost after her grandmother died. She was considered a stranger in the Tabor, even though they recognized her as a Shovihani. Lachi had left, gone to the city, and now the ghost of the past sat before her. The old gypsy woman, Ida, was her grandmother's sister. She had lived long ago in another Tabor, was also a Shovihani. The gift in their family was passed down the female line. Ida was married early. At 12, she was already a wife. Only at 20, she became a widow with a child in her arms. She never married again, she raised her son. They didn't ask her to marry, they were afraid of her. The last time I saw Lachi, Ida when she was about 7 years old. Ida and Lachi's grandmother looked very similar, so she recognized her at once. "What happened? How did you find me?" "Are you asking me how I found you?" The old gypsy woman sniggered. "It's a simple matter. Don't forget, you and I share the same blood." "Yes, indeed. But you came all this way for nothing." "Exactly. I need your help. I can't do this alone," Ida said and suddenly cried. "So many of our people are dead. My granddaughter, my daughter-in-law. What's going on?" "What happened? How did you find me? Are you asking me how I found you?" The old gypsy woman sniggered. "It's a simple matter. Don't forget, you and I share the same blood." "Yes, indeed. But you came all this way for nothing." Exactly. I need your help, I can't do this alone, Ida said and suddenly cried. So many of our people are dead, my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law, what's going on? There have been fires in several taboras that have claimed many lives. I've heard about it, but I didn't pay much attention. Fires are not uncommon here. There were rumors of arson too. A woman came up to me on the street and asked me to read a fortune. I was alone with her, and she had another conversation. She asked me to teach her and give her my gift. I explained to her that the gift is transmitted only by blood. I told her that there was a belief that the gift could only be taken away by a strong demon after Shovikani's death, provided she didn't die of her own accord. She listened, but she stood her ground. I sent her away. And the third night there was a fire in our house. People died, things died. That morning I knew there was a demon at work. Somebody had sicked a hellspawn on us, and they wanted to kill me first. What I don't understand is this isn't the first attack. Why? What does she want? Because that kind of power is devastating to the host. Ida was silent, finding it difficult to speak. Lachi handed her a glass of water. The relative's story puzzled and a little frightened the young Shovihani. What were they dealing with? She had already decided that she would help and find out what was going on. Although she has not lived among the gypsies for a long time, they remain her people. The morning after the fire I went into town. I've had your address for a long time, I didn't need to bother you, but now, I can't do it alone, they want to destroy us. I'm talking about Shovikani. Only other innocent people are suffering, it must be stopped. Auntie, I agree with you and we will solve this. Now take a shower and get some rest. I didn't get much sleep last night myself, I need to regain my strength. Lachi said softly. You are right, you need to rest. Lachi made a bed for Ida in the living room on the couch and lay down herself. They slept until late evening, and when the hostess got up, the guest had already prepared dinner. They ate in silence, each thinking of her own thoughts. Have you looked at it yourself? What did the card say? Lachi asked. There is dark magic, demonic trace, that's all. Ida answered in a tired voice. I'll see for myself. Ida lay down on the couch again, and Lachi sat in the kitchen with the cards. She fell into a deep sleep with her head resting on the table. She woke up suddenly, as if from a scream. It was the cat, and it had scratched her, a trickle of blood running down her leg. For the first few seconds, Lachi didn't even realize what was happening. Then she heard the crackling, smelled the burning, and saw smoke coming into the kitchen from behind the closed door. A fire, her worst nightmare ever. The woman grabbed a kitchen towel and quickly wet it under a stream of water. Grabbing Lachi the cat, she sprinted out of the kitchen and into the hallway. Flames raged throughout the apartment, her iron door becoming hot. With difficulty she swung the door open, burning her hands badly, but she paid no attention to the pain. Tossing the cat into the entryway, Lachi hurried into the living room. She had to drag Ida out, as the elderly gypsy woman had passed out from smoke inhalation. All the services arrived at once. Ambulance, firemen, and police. Ida was taken to the hospital in a serious condition, but Lachi stayed behind. She looked longingly at the empty windows of her apartment. She remembered with what love she had bought small things for a cozy household, how she had thought over the design. After all, how much effort and money she had put into it. Shovihani felt anger and rage rising from the depths of her soul, boiling and about to burst out. She would find out who was behind all this, and then she would deal with it in her own way. The neighbors let her and her cat in. Lachi bathed, dressed in someone else's clothes, and borrowed money and went to solve the case. She temporarily left the cat at the neighbor's house until she had no place to live. The cab pulled up to a beautiful cottage outside the city. The house was surrounded by a high fence, and on the gate, there was not only an intercom but also a video camera. The owner of the house was already waiting for Lachi, so soon they were sitting in the cozy kitchen. The gypsy woman told, from Ida's arrival to the fire. Now I'm a bum with a cat, and the worst part is that I realize the hunt isn't over. Help me find out who or what it is, asked Lachi to the woman. Valentina, the owner of the house, was Lachi's old friend and a dark witch. She never harmed her own and always said, magic is neutral. How you use it is how it will become. Valya knew a lot about the dark side of witchcraft, demons, and devils, and had some connections, so to speak. I'll see what I can do. Lie down, you're scary to look at, said Valya. Lachi stayed. She sat on the sofa, trying not to make any noise. Valya was working magic in her office. Every now and then different voices were heard from there, then rough men's voices, then children's voices. Even Shovikani became creepy. Several hours passed before Valya came out. She looked very tired. Habaril! Who? Lachi didn't understand. Let's go. In the kitchen, Valentina brewed strong, fragrant coffee and poured it into cups and spoke. "I can't go without coffee, especially after a session," the woman explained, drinking the coffee in one gulp. "So, who is this Habaril? I've never heard of him." "It's a demon of fire and conflagration. A very canonical Christian demon, by the way. It's also called Habarim, aim. Many names, but the essence is the same. He's the Duke of Hell, a powerful demon commanding 26 legions of demons. Well, you don't care about their hierarchy. He was called to do a job." Valya told me. She made more coffee. "How do you deal with him?" "You can't. He respects strength and power. A very powerful witch has summoned him for this black work. He's basically a slave for a while. You need to find this broad and you need to conspire her powers. Take away her magical powers, do you understand? Then she cannot command Habaril." "Where am I supposed to find her?" "You're not very good at clairvoyance, but you're even worse at logic. Ask your people. I think you'll find her quicker that way." "Thanks, Val." "You're welcome," smiled the witch. Lachi spent the night at Valley's place, called the hospital to find out how Ida was. Her condition was serious, she might not survive. The woman clenched her fists to keep from screaming. Right now she needed to stay calm. It took the gypsy woman 2 days to gather information about the stranger. The same woman had come to the gypsies to talk in the Shovihani. She wasn't interested in the gypsies themselves, only their witch, and almost every tabor has its own Shovicane. And everywhere after the rejection of the Shovihane there was a fire. And now Lachi herself was affected by this demon. Something seemed familiar in the description of this stranger. That's right, she knows her. They'd met a long time ago, when they were teenagers. Back then, Lachi was still living with her grandmother, and the tabor stopped for the summer in the same village. That's where Lachi met a girl who came to visit her grandmother, red-headed, with a braid, white-skinned, and funny, Zania. That summer they became friends. Zania was interested in the gypsies, and they did not drive her away. Even then the girl was interested in magic. Years later they met in the city, and whether they met then by chance? They began to communicate again. Lachi never made a secret of her activities. Jusha took an active interest and all complained that she was not so strong. Over the years, a childhood friend has become a strong witch, and she is quite capable of summoning a demon of the highest order. Almost all the books and records that were kept in Lacha's apartment burned, but she was a thoughtful and prudent girl, so she kept the copies in a safe deposit box and the money there as well. After taking the files, she rented a hotel room. She already knew what she needed to look for in her notes. Well, Lachi said quietly. Gotcha. She was on the road again, but there was no time to rest. Jusha would attack again, and who knows how many more victims there would be. On the way out of town, she stopped by the hospital, but the prognosis was not comforting. Arriving at the tabor, she gathered everyone and told what she knew. They believed her at once. No one asked stupid questions. Her word, Shovihani, is law for gypsies, even if she is not of their kind. Lachi explained what had to be done, and while the gypsies were getting ready, the witch herself changed her clothes. She dressed in traditional gypsy attire, tied a shawl on her head. The entourage was just right. The fire grew brighter and brighter, and there was no one but her. She strictly ordered everyone to stay in their tents and not come out until morning. It would be over by morning. The gypsy woman threw pins and needles into a small vat and whispered the words of the invocation. It is important to make the invocation in a place where gypsies live. The place is saturated with power. Besides, it is better to fight on their territory. Calling. A soft voice sounded behind Lachi. You're overreacting, my friend. Either send your assistant to the place of registration or go with him. Lachi replied calmly without turning around. She already knew what she would see. Behind Zania's back stood the demon Habaril, serving her now and someone else tomorrow. You should never trust demons. They lie and rarely keep their promises, Lachi said. You called me for this? Zania grinned. So? No, I need your Shovihani power. So sorry, girlfriend, you're going to have to die. Yeah, I'm on my way, Lachi whispered and threw a small bundle of grass into the fire. The world froze, it seemed, even the crickets were silent. The demon suddenly disappeared and appeared right in front of Shiusha. Now he was not serving her, he was waiting for a command. What have you done, cunt? Zania shrieked. I warned you! Zania began to retreat in panic because she knew perfectly well the strength and power of Habaril. You were not sorry for Shovikani, the children, their parents, who died because of your fault. Your place is in hell, Lacey said deliberately calmly. Shiusha recoiled and did not stay on her feet, fell directly into the fire. A terrible scream pierced the silence of the night. The woman rolled on the ground trying to knock down the flames. Habaril was already gone. Lachi had let him go. It was impossible to destroy him anyway. Lachi stared at her childhood friend indifferently, feeling nothing but disgust. In her mind, she couldn't understand. How could anyone go on a killing spree for the sake of power, even a powerful magical power? It was beyond her comprehension. Later, Zania was left at the emergency room, where she was taken care of by the doctors. On the cameras they saw men, gypsies, and when they arrived at the place where the tabor had stood, there was nothing there, just a campfire and mown grass. Lachi was greeting dawn in a field not far from the tent camp. Ida had recovered and returned to her family. This tabor had moved to another place and were trying to have less contact with the locals. Shovihani walked barefoot through the field, enjoying the morning chill, pushing other thoughts aside. She was alone with herself now. The camp was asleep, with only a young boy sitting by the campfire keeping an eye on the fire. Soon everyone would wake up. A new day would begin, different from the previous one. By the evening of the same day, Lachi had packed up to go home to the city. Ida and her family walked her to the bus stop. When the bus was almost out of sight, the old gypsy whispered, "Te avel baktalo," be happy.